Welcome back to MysteryStock. Humans love conspiracy theories and always have. There's even evidence that ancient Romans had a few. In the post-truth era we live in, it seems people are likely to believe anything. They say the truth is stranger than fiction. That's no lie, all of these so-called conspiracy theories turned out to be legit. Laughing at conspiracy theories is good fun. At least until they turn out to be true. Take the conspiracy surrounding bad booze for example. The little-told story of how the US government poisoned alcohol during Prohibition with deadly consequences. Manufacturers of industrial alcohol had been mixing their product with dangerous chemicals for years prior to Prohibition. But between 1926 and 1933, the federal government pushed manufacturers to use stronger poisons to discourage bootleggers from turning the alcohol into moonshine. That didn't stop the bootleggers or their customers, and by the end of Prohibition, more than 10,000 Americans had been killed by tainted booze. It's extremely sad that people lost their lives like this to poisoned alcohol. I'm sure you would agree, that should not have happened. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing as we make new videos like this every week. Thank you. The horror of Project Sunshine is truly unmatched. In the wake of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the US government commenced a major study to measure the effects of nuclear fallout on the human body, and so it was theorized that the government was stealing dead bodies to do radioactive testing. Chillingly, this is 100% true. And what's worse is that they needed young tissue specifically. They recruited a worldwide network of agents to find recently deceased babies and children, and then take samples and even limbs, each collected without notification or permission of the more than 1,500 grieving families. This one truly sends shivers down my spine, and I hope those children are at peace. Up next, I'm sure you know about this conspiracy. The CIA was testing LSD and other hallucinogenic drugs on Americans in a top-secret experiment on behavior modification. The program was known as MKUltra, and it was real. The CIA started by using volunteers, but the program head soon began dosing people without their knowledge. MKUltra left many victims permanently mentally disabled. And now, the US Navy fired on North Vietnamese torpedo boats that weren't even there. On the night of August 4, 1965, the USS Maddox engaged against hostile North Vietnamese torpedo boats following an unprovoked attack. The only problem, there were no torpedo boats. Or an attack. The Maddox fired at nothing, but the incident was used as a justification to further escalate the conflict in Vietnam. President Johnson reported that at least 2 of the enemy boats were sunk, and American media outlets backed up that story in numerous articles. But conspiracy theorists thought it looked a lot like a false flag attack. They were right. According to the National Security Agency's own declassified documents, there were no enemy targets. That's not all that turned out to be true. In 1947, the Air Force announced that the mysterious object that had crashed in the desert outside Roswell was not a flying saucer, but in fact, it was a weather balloon. As the years went on, interest in the crash site waned, but from the late 70s to the 90s, interest surged. Many believers alleged that the government was covering up what really crashed at Roswell. As it turned out, there was a cover-up. What had crashed in the desert wasn't a weather balloon. But it wasn't a UFO either. Instead, it was probably a balloon from Project Mogul, a Cold War attempt to spy on Soviet nuclear weapons development that used balloon-borne acoustic detection. Anyone else think that sounds like a cover-up of a cover-up? So it's not a weather balloon, it's a spy balloon. The weather balloon story could have been chosen as the official reason because the relevant authorities actually thought it was a weather balloon, or perhaps because they knew of the highly classified Project Mogul and were trying to cover it up. Or, was it a UFO? You decide. So, we have covered a lot already. But have you heard of the First Lady who ran the country? The conspiracy goes that a devastating stroke rendered President Wilson incapable of governing, and his wife surreptitiously stepped in. And as it turns out, Wilson did suffer a debilitating stroke towards the end of his presidency. Supposedly the government felt it was in the country's best interest to keep things quiet. The public didn't learn about the stroke for months, during which time his wife, Edith Wilson, was making most executive decisions. Despite Mrs. Wilson claiming that she acted only as a steward, historians who have analyzed the Wilson term in office confirm that for well over a year, Mrs. Wilson was effectively president. So, does that make her the first female president? Here's one for you. For decades, tobacco companies buried evidence that smoking is deadly. At the beginning of the 1950s, research was showing an indisputable statistical link between smoking and lung cancer, but it wasn't until the late 1990s that Philip Morris, The nation's largest cigarette maker at the time, even admitted that smoking could cause cancer. It's well known now that smoking is a very serious health risk, but back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even the 80s, almost everyone smoked without this knowledge, which is actually pretty scary when you think about how long this went on for. Hold on to your seats for this next one. There's another conspiracy that says with the advances in technology, the government is using its vast resources to track citizens. Once again, it's true. In 2016, a major non-profit organization that defends civil liberties in the digital world found that US government agencies sent requests for user data to Facebook, to Google, and to Apple. Don't worry. The likelihood that you are being watched through your camera is pretty low. Although, there is still that chance. Which is terrifying if you ask me. I love it when a conspiracy becomes truth. I want to thank you for watching, subscribing and liking. Feel free to let us know which one shocked you the most from this list. See you in the next one.